Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another week. This is the Live Life Aggressively show. Sincere Hogan, that's me. Mike Mahler on the line. What's going on, my man?
I'm doing good, and this episode is brought to you by Me Undies, the most comfortable.
I thought you were going to say this is brought to you by me and Sincere.
Aren't you so glad that
you
don't have to hear stupid sponsor ads, pitches like that? Like, you'll be in the middle of listening to someone's show, and it's like, you know what else makes me feel great? Me Undies.
The show is like, this is radio, we be underground. You know what else is under? Underwear. Like,
in addition to getting some tiger nuts at Vitacost to increase your testosterone, make sure your nuts are comfortable with Me Undies. So, aggressive
that Tiger Nuts episode got a very big response.
I had quite a few people say they went and bought some product. It's funny when people were giving me the descriptions. Yeah, like I found soaking the nuts made them more palatable. I was like, yeah, I bet you did.
That's what she said. Okay.
I'm sure you're great at soaking your nuts. Oh, man, we have a great guest today. We're going to introduce him in a second. But before we do that, just some shout outs to those of you that are not only benefiting from free content, you're benefiting from getting a discount using that coupon code LLA for listening to the show. So I'm no longer going to say you're supporting the show using that coupon code, because you're getting a double whammy benefit. You're listening to great free content, and then you're getting a discount on great products. And the shout-outs are going to Charles Lenzel, Corey Burks, Jeremy O'Brien, Nathan Jenner out of Australia. We've got Ethan Dennis, John Smith, Tom Quinn, Joseph Almanay, Ben Mattern, also out of Australia, Tyler Quinn, John Rosen, Michael Catalyst, and Joshua Wilson. They're all using that coupon code LLA. Get 10% off everything you see over at MikeMahler.com. And what's going on with you, man?
I didn't put together a list, but you can get that same discount over at NewWarriorTraining.com. Use the same coupon code LLA, and you'll get the same discount. Yeah, how about that?
You were too busy enjoying those Me Undies that I had sent over. Well, cool, man. We had a great episode a while back where we talked with Andrew Morrow, where we talked about post-traumatic stress disorder, and one of our listeners really enjoyed that episode. He wanted to share his story, and he sent us a bunch of clips, which were really inspiring, really thought-provoking stuff. So we wanted to get him on the show ASAP. And we have Robert Consulmagno, otherwise known as Cozmo, on the line. How you doing, buddy?
What's up, brother? How are you?
It's great to have you, man.
I'm doing great, man. This is great. I love talking and spreading my mission, and just doing right, man. Just trying to set an example.
Yeah, you've been through some tough stuff. You basically are dealing with PTSD and you're dealing with bipolar.
Yeah, man, I have a double whammy, brother.
What exactly is bipolar?
Right.
I think there's a lot of confusion about that.
Bipolar is like, I'm going to be honest with you. It's like 1 minute you're goody with everybody. Next minute you want to choke everybody out.
Sounds like every woman I've ever known.
Yeah.
Sounds like me in traffic sometimes too.
It's one of those things that you really don't see it till after something has happened. Mm. I've severed a lot of relationships till, and then when I came forth with my story and everything like that, people are cool with it. And they know when I'm triggered, or they know when I'm having that manic state. Typically, I'm more on the upside, which is the manic, euphoric, Superman-esque, whatever you want to call. I feel like I can run through a brick wall. And then there's moments when I'm down, and it's hard, man. They actually, back in the day, they called it manic depressive.
Yeah.
My father was, I guess, manic depressive, and then he became schizophrenic and took his own life. So, and being around violence for a very, very long time as a child, and going to the Marine Corps and serving in the Marine Corps, just added on to it, and that's completely different. PTSD is post-traumatic stress, which means you've been exposed to a certain type of trauma. Mine was 100% of the time violence and fear of lashing back, that kind of thing. The bipolar, I believe it's predominantly just genetic. A lot of Americans have it in the world. Some of your greatest stars in the world, actors.
I was just about to bring that up. Yeah.
I can bring up some names. You look at somebody like a Robin Williams. Everything at the top of the world, man. I mean, that guy was the epitome of the guy was just an amazing individual, and he took his own life.
Yeah.
So, it's for me. I was in denial for many, 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 many years. I'm just a product of society. Everybody goes through trials and tribulations, yada, 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 yada. But you know what? I come to grips with it. I go, man, I'm fighting a battle. And sometimes I just want to be alone.
Yeah.
Some days I like to be around people.
Well, you went through some pretty traumatic stuff as a young kid. Your father committed suicide when you were 10, and then your stepfather was very abusive.
Yeah, and listen, where I grew up in, we call it Chill Town. It's called Jersey City, New Jersey. I grew up.
That's where my wife's from. Yeah.
Nice. So you know the deal. It's changed now. Now it's like a brownstone. I mean, it's amazing. Back in the day, in the 70s and stuff, it's kind of like I grew up in an all-Italian neighborhood. My neighborhood reminded me of a Bronx Tale. I don't even saw that with De Niro. That's how my neighborhood was. But there was a lot of violence, and a lot of people kept their mouths shut with certain things. And there's people that I confide in today. They're like, oh, I didn't know it was that. Like, come on, dude, you know it was bad.
Right.
Everybody avoided this guy. He was a big dude, and he was very abusive. I mean, I can tell you some crazy stories. It almost sounds fictional, like I'm making it up, but it's true. I would never. I mean, like, the things that I seen, I told people, and the first thing they go is, holy, what the hell? You need to write a book. I'm like, that's my goal, to eventually write a book, But he was very abusive. I mean, he would just beat my mother up over a stupid hockey game or a football game. I never forget one day, we're pulling up at the parking lot. We left the Rangers game. We get home. It was freezing out. I'll never forget it because when you're a kid, everything's amplified.
Right.
And I'll stick to that because everything is amplified as a child. My mother couldn't open up the lock. He just went out of the car and just started pummeling her and beat her down, and her nose is bleeding and everything. I've seen him beat a guy over a parking space with a shovel and lay him out, and the cops didn't do nothing. I had a gun in my hand at 10 years old that I used to shoot my my mother's with 3 men, married to my real father who committed suicide, who I did not know. Then she was with this other guy, my first stepfather, for about 13 years. He was the guy that was very abusive and did all the violence and all that stuff. He shot my other stepfather in the head, and it was a .22, so the weapon, the bullet grazed his skull, so it didn't do enough damage to take his own life, and he stood down on the ground. After he did that, then he took his own life with the same weapon in Moonachie, New Jersey. So, and my grandfather, when I was a kid, he tried to molest me. And my uncle, got to that. That didn't happen. I mean, he tried to touch me, and I never saw him again, so I was exposed to that. But the violence was just horrible. There's more stuff added to that. When my mother broke up with him, I didn't know. I'm 10 years old, man. I'm sitting in the car. He took her to his place of work. He was a forklift driver, and he forced himself upon my mom against her will after they had broken up. So basically, he raped my mom, and she came in the car crying, and then she blamed me, bringing it trying to stop. I'm 10 years old. The guy's 6'4", 300-pound dude. Are you kidding me? So I had a lot of weight on me. And, then at the Marine Corps is an escape. I'm going to tell you, you grew up in the hood. I wasn't that kid that was just going to succumb to it. I was an athlete. I used the hood because that's where I grew up. I played sports. Sports was my outlet, the people I hung out in high school were always I was always found myself attracted to hanging out with the people who were bullied and being their protector. My best friend was from Taiwan. His name is David Lee, and everybody used to mess with him. But when I hung out with him, nobody tormented and messed with him. And we would actually get lunch, and we would walk a mile away from the high school to get away from all the craziness, to sit on the stoop and just talk about how beautiful life is and this and that. And I said, man, I'm going to become a Marine. I'm going to earn the title. I want to wear earn a set of dress blues like my uncle. And because he was my inspiration, because he went through some stuff. I mean, his stuff, like my grandmother, she had 3 children. 4 boys. My grandfather died at a young age. So she used to beat him with electrical cords. It was crazy, man. My one uncle, I have to mention this, if he listens to it, whatever, but, I got to talk about it. I was a kid. I'm walking up the stairs from the laundry room, and I'm like, Uncle Mark, what's that on your back? That's good. He goes, oh, your uncle stabbed me in the back over a bike. I grew, I'm like, whoa, man, what? All this violence and aggression. I don't know if it's just because of that area or whatever, but, I channeled it. I could have either succumbed and just complained and got involved with drugs or this and that. I went in the Marine Corps. I probably went in, with the bipolar disorder. And for the first 2, 3, 4 years, I'll be honest with you, man, I was walking on eggshells. I was fighting every day. I say fighting, I was challenging higher ups. I didn't care if they were going to court-martial me. They never court-martialed me. I went to an actual hearing They dropped it because my SRB, that's your service record book, was clean. I mean, I was the epitome of what the Marine Corps wanted. I was the fastest guy, the strongest guy. I was a 300 PF tier, that kind of thing. I was never late. I was on time. They just thought I was just this arrogant kid. But meanwhile, I probably was fighting these demons or had this disability, because it is a disability. I shouldn't have got past MEPS. That stands for, I believe it's Military Interest Processing Station. But back then, even in the early 90s, you could have a record and get in. When my uncle went in, the judge said you're either going to become a Marine or go to jail. So it was even worse back in the 70s and the 60s. So, but go ahead. I mean, I don't know if you have any more questions. I could keep going.
No. While this whole bipolar thing is defined as genetic, I have to wonder how much is life experience as well.
Yes,
at least
nature,
some aspect
nurture,
of it
is
being
environmental.
It's got to be. Listen, I think it's got to be
just listening to you, I can't imagine and there's not a strong connection. Yeah.
I really, I'm not a doctor, not a veterinarian, but I'll give you an example. You look at animals, man's best friend. I'm just going to use, I love pit bulls, I love animals, I'm just saying, but they get the biggest rap. People want to put these dogs down and this and that, and they're like, oh, they're vicious. I'm like, listen, to me, a pit bull falls in line with like a perfect specimen. They're highly intelligent. They will do anything to appease their owner, but they have these beautiful bodies and are athletic.
Right.
But the thing is, you look at a dog. Sometimes, they have the therapists at the SPCA and stuff, and the dog is, quote unquote, it's unrehabilitative. They go through a certain protocol, they test it, the dog snaps. You can make the argument, we're all animals. Human beings have a threshold. I might have that threshold, and that could be bipolar. So, and I told people, never judge a book by its cover because I look fit. You don't know what I went through. And,
Well, I think in some ways you could have developed this what's defined as bipolar, as a defense mechanism to everything you've gone through.
Okay.
Or I can see on the flip side of that, I can see that some of the stuff that happened to you actually enhanced what was already there genetically.
Right.
It just really brought it forth, because you always had it there. It's kind of like a superpower. It's just like, these mutant superheroes or whatever they have in the comic books or whatever. They have this thing there, but then some tragedy, something happens where it's always been there, and it just kind of wakes this sleeping giant, and it comes out.
Oh my God. Let me tell you something. What you just said totally confirms, because I get in these moods. I'm a big kid. I love comic books. My hero is the Hulk.
Yeah.
Because you look at Dr. David Banner, you see this frail man. And listen, you might laugh when I say this, but I get a little tearjerker when I watch the intro from the 70s series, because that depicts to me bipolar. It's like, you won't like me when I'm angry.
Right.
That kind of thing. And I turn into the Hulk. And you're right. It's that hidden thing. It's
that theme music gives everyone a little tear.
I'm sorry. I feel like I can run through a brick wall when I hear it. I'm like, oh my God, I want to turn into the Hulk. Like when I was a kid, I used to think my eyes were going to turn green, but my eyes were black and blue from getting punched in the eye. Right. I'm just playing around. But, that's the beauty of these heroes, is that you can live vicariously through them, and you're right.
Well, a lot of them are based off of, a lot of these writers, this is their therapy for them. They create these characters and these storylines as a way. It's a means for them to also deal with their own stuff. It's kind of like comedians. A lot of comedians get into comedy to deal with the stuff that they have going on in their head, man, and the therapy that they didn't want to go sit on a couch and deal with. And a lot of the things that you're saying right now, I can really relate to, because, the reason why I can say that, it's a sleeping giant, because genetically, I have a lot of people in my family who have mental issues, from schizophrenia to bipolar to manic depression, all of that. But the fact is, growing up, it's like my grandmother always let me know. She didn't try to hide and shield me from these things and from those family members. She wanted to let me know that it's here, it's there. And it's kind of like the people that try to blame, like in our industry, who try to blame being overweight on genetics. Well, okay, here's the thing. If it's in your family, you got to take an extra effort to shield yourself from becoming a part of that statistic. And so It's the same thing growing up. I mean, I actually saw one of my aunts, just like, once my father was murdered, she just lost it, man. And I remember walking in and seeing her getting exercised. It wasn't like a movie or anything. It wasn't like, but it was crazy. It's like, wow. And I just sat there and everybody was trying to leave the room, and they were just, scared and all this. But I remember standing in that doorway and watching, and just, I don't know. It was something fascinating about it to me, because I was like, wow, this is not a movie. This is real life. This is actually happening right now. And to watch you get exercised, man, I was like, wow, this is, I can say now, this is crazy, but now I look back, it's just like, wow, dude. And from that point on, I just made a point. I don't know. It's just something, just overhearing conversations from the adults in my family, because so-and-so kept it all in and, they didn't want to deal with this and want to deal with that. For some reason, 8 years old, I picked up on it and I always said to myself, I'm not holding anything in, man. I'm letting everything out, and I've always tried to find a way to deal with things and find an outlet, whether it's training, now as a fire instructor, just go to the range and let some off down range or whatever else, man. And, from martial arts. Anything, man, just, not hold that stuff in because I don't want to awaken that sleeping giant that I know I have genetically that's already there, and so that's what it reminded me of when you said that. It's like so many things that you said I have parallel going on with my family as well. I mean, from the grandmother getting, getting beat with, my mom and all them getting, whippings with, extension cords and my grandmother's, mom pretty much like when they're about to get whipped, she's running and my great grandmother picks up a brick and just hits my grandmother. Just stop her from running so she can get a whipping. I'm like, I hear these stories. I was like, whoa. But again, like you said, I don't know if it was just something about that era or what. I mean, this is talking about the 30s and all that. It's a different time period, man. And, it's just these kids would have no idea. They get put in time out. They have a fit. They don't understand, like, why are you doing this to me? I'm like, you have no idea what some of your parents and grandparents and all them went through for punishment. Like, go sit in that corner and just be quiet. It's like, you have no idea. So.
Yeah, it's I agree, man. I mean, I just, I go, with things going on today, I'm like, and I hate to say these kids are weak or meek, but, I don't think anybody should get, I was in a body cast at 6 years old. I remember walking up the stairs and he kicked me down a flight of stairs. And then he broke my right arm when I got in trouble one time. He tried to throw me and he put a chicken wing me. He threw me halfway across the room and broke my arm. And I remember as a kid in school, I was monitored by what's called a child study team because back then, the DIFUS wasn't as, it was a lot harder to get your kids taken away. But they would check on me to make sure, if I wasn't bruised as much, whatever. My mother covered up a lot of stuff. And my uncles wanted to take us away because he was a Marine and he lived in Virginia and wanted to put us, give us a better life. But she was too stubborn. And I hate to say it, but she made us go through more, especially me. I don't know why I was the one that got the brunt. Maybe it's because I was kind of like more of the black sheep and was more of the fighter. But you look back and you go, man, why me? But I can't change the past. Like all I can do is push forward and harness.
Well, when did intense physical training and then jiu-jitsu become your therapy?
Well, I'll be frank with you, man. The intense training has always been there, but I was walking around like a nomad. Like I just didn't know why I was training so much. But I would have to say about 5-6 years ago is when I actually found grounding or people coming up to me in the gym. They're like, hey, man, you train are you a fighter? I'm like, nah, I just love to train. And I would just kill myself to the point of exhaustion because when you're manic, you can't sleep, that thing. And then I decided to take a jiu-jitsu class. And boom, here I am 5 years later. I'm close to my brown belt. I was #1 in the world in no gi, which is, without the gi, the kimono, for 6 months straight. You can't win every one. I've lost a couple here and there. It happens. That's the beauty of jiu-jitsu is it's very humbling. And
just adding on what you said about training, you're getting yourself exhausted to tire yourself out. I always say that intense training is one of the best ways to stay out of trouble because if you work out hard, you're too tired to do anything else. You may say, I'm going to go down here and do this. Okay, go get a workout in first. Chances are you're not going to want to go do that self-destructive behavior afterwards.
Right. What I tell people is I make a joke. They're like, man, you train so hard. Like I'll go out and hang out with some of the guys, and they'll be like fooling around with me and they're like, come on, man. They'll try to grab me and do stuff like you're a beast. And I'm like, and I go, and they go, dude, what's wrong with you? I'm like, dude, I train so hard that I can't even move right now. I make jokes. I'm like, man, I'm going to be at the 7-Eleven one day. Some dude's going to start me, and I'm going to wind up being because I can't fight back because I train that hard.
I think about that too. Sometimes after a heavy squat day, I was like, man, I hope today is not the day that I get jumped. Because I'm not going to be able to run out of this situation as quickly. I'm not going to be able to defend myself as easily as normal.
But isn't that nuts, though? You sit there, you go, man, I train so hard not to fight, but somebody's going to start me. I'm going to be a YouTube phenom. Jiu-jitsu fighter gets laid out.
But because you train so hard, though, you have a certain aura that makes you less likely to be a target. I'm not saying that it's 100% foolproof, but you're definitely less likely to be a target.
I hear you, man.
It's just an energy you put out. People pick up on that.
Great. Yeah. So I mean, man,
But how is jiu-jitsu in particular? It seems like that's been the most therapeutic part of this whole story, not just the intense physical training, but something about jiu-jitsu in particular.
Let me tell you, what the beauty of jiu-jitsu is, like, I'll give you an example. I boxed, and I did Ringside Worlds, which is a very huge tournament. I mean, I didn't know it was that big. When I got there, my coach was like, bro, this is Ringside Worlds, man. I'm like, what do you mean, like Worlds, like the best dudes? He's like, yeah, I thought this was like just like some, I thought Ringside, I'm thinking like, a smaller tournament. Make a long story short, I got in there. When that bell rang, I went, oh, my God. I can't believe I'm fighting this guy. The guy who beat me has 20 years experience and 5 world champions on. One of them is on Showtime. He comes up to me and goes, hey, champ, you're great. And I go, this guy being sarcastic? He goes, dude, how long you been training? I said, 8 weeks for this fight. He goes, bro, I've been training for 20 years. You're an animal. Stick with it. My head hurt for a week. Now, the jiu-jitsu. What I love about the jiu-jitsu is that you can be pushed and you can tap and your ego is out the door immediately. There's always somebody in jiu-jitsu who's going to circumvent your game and take advantage, I hate to say take advantage, dominate you.
Right.
I train with animals. 21-year-old, this 21-year-old brown belt I train with. It's like, I think I'm pretty decent, for an older guy, but it's like he's playing with a baby. And I love it because it keeps me in check. Like what's his name was just saying? He was saying, he doesn't want to let that hope to come out. So, that demon. The beauty of jiu-jitsu is when I feel like I'm turning into that and I'm like, I'm invincible, I go to class and get smoked. And that keeps me in check. And I go, well, I'm not the baddest dude on the planet. Because that's what bipolar is sometimes. You get so manic, you're like, I'm going to set a world record. I'm going to do this. Now, I can do that. But the thing is, though, the average person who they're like, you think you can do certain things that are kind of really unrealistic.
Right. You have this inflated view of your ability. So you talked about how when you were had a sales job, you made a bunch of money and you won a trip to Vegas and you just blew everything there.
Yeah.
Right?
And
which is a common story here.
Here's another thing. There's other things about bipolar that you don't really hear about. People that have come out and talked about it, but they don't talk about. I'm going to talk about 2 other things: money and sex.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
My sex drive, even at 43 years old, is like a 16-year-old. And I try not to go out as much. I try to chill out because when I was younger, man, I hate to say it, but I mean, I would be like a pinball machine.
Don't move to Nevada, Robert.
I lived in Nevada. Did I tell you?
That's right. No, I read that story. I heard that story where you said you just drove out here and then you found someone on Facebook to live with.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
That's pretty dangerous right there. First of all, I don't know if I would want to live with someone I found on Facebook, but I would be even more skeptical if they want me to live with them.
So I woke up one day, I'm like, in my moods, I guess I was like, F this. I'm like, there ain't nothing wrong with me. I'm going to live a better life. So then I did. I drove to Vegas. I remember crossing over.
You drove to Vegas from where? From New Jersey?
From New Jersey.
Wow.
In this little Nissan with like 200,000 miles, bro. And I show up, and I'm like, I pull up, and I live in a Summerlin area because that's where I want to live. Because Summerlin's kind of like a little bit nicer area.
Yeah.
Off Tropicana or whatever it might be, whatever. It's been a while. That was in 2008, I think. So, you go on Facebook and Craigslist. I find this guy as I'm pulling a parking lot. I give him $400.
Craigslist, man, come on. I'm surprised he didn't end up chained in a dungeon somewhere.
Like, this story's all types of wrong. This is a Hollywood movie ready to be made, man. Or a Lifetime special.
Like, you can come live with me, boy. Come on.
Yes. So I'm sleeping on the floor. I wake up the next day, and when you think of Vegas,
chained and gagged. No, I was kidding.
When you're in Vegas, who do you think of if you love UFC and martial art? I'm like, I'm going to fucking train with Randy Couture.
Right.
So I'm going to hit the speed bag. I'll never forget Randy's son. I used to come in and they had a nickname for me, the machine gun, because I'd be on the speed bag for 2 hours destroying the speed bag. And I'll never forget Wanderlei Silva coming upstairs and giving me the 2 thumbs up. Some of these MMA fighters were the nicest guys in the world. Oh, yeah. And I just wanted to be around them. That's all I want to do is I just want to be around them. I don't know why I was drawn.
And that place always has a who's who Extreme Couture. So I taught a few courses there, and during the breaks, you would just look out the window and see who's training, and you see Forrest Griffin down there, and Gina Carano, and all kinds of people. Yeah.
Yo, you want to hear something crazy? Gina Carano walked by me one day, and I'm like, oh my God, she's, I'm just gonna say, I'm like, what a beautiful woman. She can bang. She's off the hook. So I used to lift and train and do my jump rope routine in Las Vegas Athletic Club. And I never forget, Forrest Griffin was hanging out and he was watching me jump rope like a maniac. He was like, holy crap, because I could jump rope pretty good, and I just got back from Europe training with the world's best female jump roper in the world, and we shot a video that's going to go viral soon. But also I want to touch on, I don't know if you knew, but my great-grandfather is a Hall of Fame boxer. Did you know that?
Right. Yeah, that's in one of your interviews.
Yeah, well, real quick on him, 175 fights. He was around in the 20s to the late 30s. He fought 175 fights, won the belt in 3 different divisions, from flyweight up to heavyweight. He sparred, Max Schmeling, who knocked out Joe Louis.
Yeah, sure.
My great-grandfather mauled him and got kicked out of his camp. Now, here's another one. For the Brown Bomber sparred my great-grandfather and tried to lay the wood to him. My great-grandfather dropped him. He got chased out by guys with guns in Detroit when they were training. He was training with Chappie Blackburn. And he left his suit during the Great Depression, and my grandmother hit him with a wooden spoon. I'm done. Back then, you had to work. He worked and he boxed sometimes 2-3 times a week. So you get back and you go back to your roots. You go, man, why do I want to be around this stuff? I really don't like to fight, but I like being in this martial art, and I love the actual training aspect.
Right.
And I'm the nicest guy in the world. If somebody said to me, you want to fight in the street? I'm like, I don't want to fight you, man. I'm walking away. Have a drink. Let's go get a cup of coffee.
Right.
When I'm in the ring or I'm doing whatever, the beast mode kicks off. That's it. I don't want nothing to do with that.
Well, I think part of the reason why you're so low key walking around is because you're exercising all of those demons out through your training.
Right.
And let's get back to this Gina Carano story. I was waiting for the punchline there.
Well, I mean, when I say it's really not just a story, but the thing is, here's a guy. I was 38 years old, whatever, and you just sign a little contract, and you're around these guys and you're looking at them, and you're watching them look at you, because there's a little bit of a fear. I mean, these guys are professional fighters, and you see her, and she was at the top of her game back then.
Right.
And she just would smile, just smile at me, and I'm like, smiling back, and I'm like, I was afraid to say hello, but Randy shook my hand once, but his son, I talked to his son a few times.
Yeah, Ryan Couture. Yeah.
Yeah. He used to sit at the front desk. And unfortunately, I had an outbreak in Vegas, and they probably still might have my contract. I know it's been so long, but the VA, this was in the early stages before they allowed me to do as this therapy. They made me cease and desist training, so I had to cancel my contract with them, and they understood because I had to show them my 100% award letter, yada yada. And I said, look, man, they don't want me fighting, and this and that, and they said it's bad.
Why did you have to cease and desist training? Because
he said it was amplifying. For some apparently, he thought it was amplifying
the manic
episodes and making me even more. You get better at fighting. Now he says he thought I'm going to go out and start, being homicidal or whatever. But in reality, I wasn't. But they made me stop. And then I left Vegas, and then I was all over the place, man. I lived in Chicago twice. I lived in Minnesota, Florida. But in Florida and Tampa is when I got involved with jiu-jitsu. And I guess because there's no trauma, like there's no punches, the VA was a little adamant at first.
Well, when you were in Florida, you ended up in the hospital for a couple of days too, right? What happened there?
Oh man, I was just sitting in my apartment, and I remember waking up, and periodically I still have these panic wake ups where like I'll just panic and I have my dog, but I didn't have a dog at the time. I just woke up and it was dark, and I just freaked out, and I got in my car, like there was no thought process, and I just drove to the hospital. And I walked in, and I'm just like, I just need somebody to cool me down, talk to me. And next thing you know, I'm talking, and their way of saying you're not leaving was like, we think you should stay. And I just stood, and next thing you know, I was in there for 2 days. And man, I guess you could say that's like kind of a rock bottom, but in my eyes, it was more or less like, man, you really have to fix this, or not necessarily fix, but try to battle this, because you can't fix something that, there's no cure for bipolar disorder or PTSD, whatever it might be. But I got out of there, and that's when I went into overdrive, like as far as training. And I took that jiu-jitsu class, and then with that first year, I competed 8 times as a white belt, and I won everything. Got my blue belt, and I trained with Marcio Cruz. I don't know if you know who he is, but Marcio Cruz was in the UFC. He's a legend in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He beat everybody. He beat Marcelo Garcia. He beat Roger Gracie. He beat them all.
Wow.
And to get my blue belt from him, and then I panicked there. I just kind of left without even really telling them. And, man, I burned some bridges even in the jiu-jitsu community a little bit, because I was afraid to tell people that, I had these demons. And now they all know, and they respect it. And now I'm in a good place here in Pennsylvania. I'm under Atos Jiu Jitsu, which is another major it's a huge affiliation in Jiu Jitsu. They're like, you got your top 3 teams. You got Atos, you got Alliance, you got a couple other ones out there. Henzo's team, Henzo Gracie. But Atos, they're huge in Cali, and those guys, they pretty much dominate on the West Coast. And I go to class and I train with some beasts, and these beasts keep me and keep my beast that's embedded inside of me contained.
It's more like, do you think it's more like a mutual respect for the fact that a lot of fighters themselves have their own demons they're fighting? And that's the reason why they got into fighting and got into martial arts, to contain. It's just like, it's kind of like a kindred, right? There's some type of, it's a brotherhood and sisterhood. Because rarely do you ever find any that's like, oh, no, I never had to deal with any kind of stuff. I just, I'm a middle class kid, and, I just like martial arts. Whereas the majority of these guys you see, they had some stuff that happened, man, abuse and trauma and loss and all that. And this was just a way to kind of just contain all that, man, or to work through it. But at the same time, there's such a respect when you go inside of a dojo that like, okay, look, yeah, you're coming and you're working that out. But at the same time, you're going to show respect. And it's probably one of the most effective ways of having someone who's dealt with issues, just say they come from a really bad place, to actually understand respect. And I don't know, in my opinion, it seems like you have a lot more, let's say, father figures and family there compared to your actual blood relatives who've probably done some things to you, and you never thought that you could ever have family again. It's kind of like some of the reasons a lot of kids join gangs, because they need to feel like they belong. And I think that's one of the biggest things that helps out there. What do you think, man? Do you think it's the same thing?
I agree, man. We have a lot in common, bro. Like, we coincide, concur, whatever you want to call 100% concurrence. Because I'll tell you what, there's a camaraderie I'll never get. Let me tell you, my family, and I'm sure maybe your family, they don't get it. They, like my brother, he went through some stuff, and his way is keeping it under the table and trying to, fake the funk. I call fronting, but I speak up. I can't.
That's the majority of people. Whatever their issue is, just bury it deep. Put it under the carpet and try to hold it there. Right.
And when you go to these, like, martial art, like you said, my idol is, like, is Bruce Lee, man. Like, I love him. I want to cry when I watch his stuff, because, like, it's so inspirational, and his quotes and seizing life, and you only live once, man. Like, every day that I live, I go, man, I got to do some stuff. I want to be on Wikipedia. Like, I want to leave a legacy. I need a legacy. I want to be that guy. Forget about that. Like, use my past, harness it, channel it, use it as fuel. And then when you get there, help other people along the way to come out of the shadows. And that's why I want to speak, because the emails that I get, everybody, listen, a lot of these people, and they're black. I know some black belts, man. I'm talking black belt killers in jiu-jitsu that have depression, but they won't come out, man, because of the backlash. And I'm like, dude, you need to come out and talk about it. No one's perfect. We all have it. But I'm their spokesman. And it's great. They can choke me out 10 ways every day, but they look up to me because I'm that guy I'm just willing to come out and take the heat if that's the case.
Well, it's like you said in one of your interviews, any man who doesn't cry, he's crying the most.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of epidemic of that. I think sometimes people want to live up to the false expectations of others. So someone looks at you and goes, oh, you've got such a perfect life, and it's not true, but you're trying to live up to that expectation.
I had people tell me, question my disability. Listen, I don't talk about my physical ailments. I have hearing loss. I had 4 operations on my legs. I had vein stripping. I almost had a pulmonary embolism. I had some kind of problem from being in the Marine Corps, working 16-hour days in boots. I worked in a warehouse, so I had no circulation in my legs. I don't tell people about that, because that, I got that surgery done. I deal with the knee pain and stuff like that. I put my body through so much trauma. Some days I can't get out of bed. But I'm not going to stop what I'm doing, because I'm a warrior. And you know what? When people tell me you look fit, there's nothing wrong with you, I get angry, man, because you know what? They don't know. And I'm not going to substantiate myself to every human being what I went through. Right. I'm not going to be that guy. I don't have enough time to talk about that. But the reality is, when I get to the point, and
that's always a form of manipulation anyway, where someone tries to put you in a position where you have to explain yourself. They're just trying to steal your energy. That's all that is. That's just a psychic vampire mechanism.
Or they're projecting, because they're like, oh, you're just trying to do this to get attention, because they themselves want attention and they don't know how to do it. So they start projecting their insecurities on you.
Man, you guys, we see eye to eye, because they don't understand. Like, to me, like, if somebody was to put down and tell me, give me a scenario, like, which route you go. A lot of people love money. You know what I like? For me, more my honor and my legacy means more to me than anything in the world. That's just the way I am. That's just the way I am, because you know what? When you've been through stuff, or everybody's been through stuff. But when I look back in retrospect, I go, you know what? I'm not going to sit here and I'm going to seize life, man, because I want to live to 100. People say, what do you want to live to 100 for? I'm like, why not? I'm like, I want to live to 100, maybe 120. What are you kidding? I don't want to die. You know, it's like every day that goes by, you're like, man, I'm alive. Because there's days, man, I could be in the gym, be in a good mood, and all of a sudden start tearing because a song pops on. Because I listen to inspirational stuff when I work out, and my workouts are intense because that.
Well, what do you listen to? Give us some examples.
I listen to the Gladiator station, which is basically from the movie Gladiator.
Yeah. That's some great music.
Karate Kid station, and I listen to, it depends. Like if I'm going beast mode, I listen to Slayer, that kind of stuff. If I'm jumping rope and boxing and I'm more in a little bit better mood, I listen to dance music because there's patterns in it, and I like to dance. And it's like, you know, you think like an Ali-esque kind of stuff. Yeah, but when I'm in a strength, like the depressing mode, I go into that stuff that just really pulls out that deep fire to help me push through my workouts. And sometimes, man, I have to turn my head because I might have a tear coming out. I had one coming out today when I was doing my ab wheel because I'm so close. I'm getting so strong at this exercise that I'm going to smash the record. And I'm going to...
Well, how many reps do you have to do to smash the record?
500 in an hour.
And this is standing ab wheel rollouts, right? 500 in an hour. So
I don't think anybody's grasping what you just said. Okay, you're standing with this ab.
Well, most people can't do one.
Can't do 5.
It's fucking hard.
You know, in an hour.
Forget about 5. 1. I mean, 1 is difficult standing.
You know how, like, you look at the power of the mind. I'm going to give you an example. Like, pull-ups used to be my worst exercise. It's one of my best now because I look at it from a scientific standpoint. You know all this stuff because you deal with nutrition and all this. And I go, you know what? It's science. If I keep doing this exercise over an X amount of time, my body's going to adapt. I'm going to get stronger. It's like a stimulus. Your body will overcome. I used to have trouble doing 20 dead hangs. I can do sets of 40 dead hangs sometimes. It's crazy. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, bang, 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 bang. I'm like, oh, my God. The ab wheel's the same thing. One day I went in the gym. I said, all right, it's a numbers game. Everything in the world has to do with numbers and math. I'm like, I need to do 500 an hour. I'm not leaving the gym today till I do 1,000. I did 1,000. I couldn't walk the next day, but I did 1,000. I went to a certain threshold. I doubled it. Now I play with it. I go, you know, I don't max out and do that stuff as much, but that was a mental hurdle for me to go over. I said, don't leave the gym till I do 1,000. I did it like in under 2 hours, and I did it at very slow, constricted movement. Now, some days I'll go and I'll do 20 sets of 25, and I'm like, whoop, 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 whoop. I'm like, oh my God, it's so easy. People say, you make it look so easy. And I go, listen, it's body adaptation. You do something, it becomes like blinking. Just like Bruce Lee said, you know, I don't fear the man who's kicked 10,000 kicks. I fear the man who's kicked one particular kick 10,000 times because it becomes a part of your central nervous system. It's like it just happens.
Yeah, there's a taming involved with repetitions, right? So like let's say the first 10 reps may be very difficult. The first 5 in particular, like the first time I ever did handstand push-ups, the first couple of reps were hard. And then eventually you hit this point where, bam, all of a sudden you can just rep out. Of 10, 15, it just starts growing. Because you get into the groove, you become like a locomotive machine. You start figuring out how to be as efficient as possible.
Wow. I mean,
like when you do the standing ab wheel rollout, I'm guessing your body is fairly relaxed, right? Because a lot of people say tense up as much as possible, which is probably good advice when you're trying to do that first rep. But to do 10 or more, you have to forget all of that tension bullshit and relax through it.
Yeah, it's going to become like a punch, man. It's just like you got to relax until you're ready to strike. And, you know, once you make contact, that's when you tense up, and then you relax again, which tends to be the mantra for almost everything physically. You know, you got to be in this relaxed state until it's time to do something. Even when you're defending yourself, you got to be like that. Even in the most stressful time when something's going down, it's not time to clench up and try to walk around all stiff, you know, and preparing yourself to strike someone or shoot someone, whatever else. You got to get that breathing under control that body. And then when it's time to strike, just like a snake is not all stiff the entire time. But when he's ready to strike, boom, he strikes, and then he coils back like, all right, I'm good. You're dead.
With strength training, you have to get to the point where you can relax. So the first time you press 2 heavy kettlebells, you're going to be pretty tense. Yeah. But to get to 10 reps with that same weight, you're going to have to learn how to relax through it. So you have to be strong enough to relax. Like you said one time, Sincere, you want your grip to be so strong that you can relax it.
Right.
That's a sign of a strong grip with kettlebell sport.
Wow. Exactly. You guys are right. Man, it's crazy because I find myself when I'm teaching people, you know, people come up to me in the gym and go, try to do it, and you see the stress and the tension. It's funny because, you see everything. You can see all the muscle fibers. You can see, firing. And it's crazy. I'm getting to the level where I can literally just kind of close my eyes, and I can actually isolate and tell my body to send this, my mind to send a signal to certain areas to, if I'm starting to compromise form or feel like a little stress in like in the core. I don't feel it in the core right away.
Right.
Because I'm so, like you said, I'm relaxed. But then what happens is I might have a little fatigue in the arms, and then I teach myself how to lock my arms without really using. We call it economy. Bruce Lee used to call it economy of motion. You want to be able to do an exercise or throw a punch with such minimal force, but it has so much power and so much velocity. So it's the same principle, somewhat. I find, like, you're right. When I go down, the first one is kind of like, all right, I got it, and then after the second one, it's literally, it feels like I'm just kind of floating.
Right.
And
I always call it the first date. Like, even when I'm training someone, there's that anxiety. You see them all nervous. I say, all right, so go ahead and get that first kiss out of the way, or get that first hug, or that first dinner, and get it out of the way. And that's all this is. That's the first date. And once you get over that, you start to relax and you calm down. You're like, all right, now you're starting to get to know that person, which now that person is you. And you get to start thinking, you get to realize, like, okay, what are my strengths? What do I need to work on? What do I suck at? And how do I make it unsuck? So, and that's the thing. And one of the things that I like to do, even just like in kettlebell sport, was like 10 minutes long of doing the same thing over and over. You start out, the first time you try to do a time set, just the thought of it, I'm going to sit here and snatch a 53-pound iron object or steel object over my head multiple times. Eventually you're going to realize, like, okay, just to sit and tell someone to relax to do that sounds asinine. Like, how do you relax when you're throwing a heavy weight over your head over and over and over? That doesn't make any sense until you start doing it. And then until you start doing it tensely, you realize, like, okay, I can't continue to do this, because if I stay tense, then my arms are going to start getting weak and I'm going to lose control and I'm going to drop that thing on my head, which is just the opposite of what you thought when you were thinking about relaxing with it over your head like that. And so that's what ends up happening, man. Then eventually you start realizing, okay, I got to become very efficient with this, because otherwise I'm not going to make it for 10 minutes. And you end up coaching yourself. And that's the one thing I always tell people, like, listen and learn as much as you can and learn about your body. So while this is happening, you got to coach yourself through it. You got to talk yourself through it. You can start realizing, like, all right, that was a bad rep. You don't have to panic over there and like, oh man, I messed up. You just like, all right, correct it on the next one. Then what did you do wrong? You assess it in that millisecond of time that you have to do the rep. Like, okay, what did I do wrong? Oh, I shifted a little bit too much to the left. Or actually, I just wasn't thinking about the rep. I started zoning out. And so, get back in the game. So you have to be in the moment, but at the same time, be relaxed in the moment. And also that breathing makes a big part of it, man. I mean, just the whole breathing thing. People underestimate the power of the breath, and how much that has control over whether you succeed or not in anything that you do.
Wow. Wow. Deep. Love it. I love it. I love it.
Did we lose Mike?
Oh, sorry. Mike.
No, I'm on mute, man. Keep going,
okay. Oh, sorry.
No, Cozmo, I saw that, I saw when I was reading up on you that, you also help, kids with bullying. That seems to be a big thing now. And there's also another part of bullying, before we get to that I think, that we don't hear about as much, is that bullying in the workplace. Mobbing, as you call it. A lot of people now, this is where I think a lot of our listeners are probably going to relate, or they've witnessed this before, because, you have that situation where, I mean, we always talk about this all the time. Like, people have a lot of stress in their life because they work at a job that they can't stand. They work with people that they want to probably punch in the throat on a daily basis. And sometimes you just have these people who just have it out to get you, especially if you're a performer. And you pretty much, again, like I said earlier, people like to project their insecurities on you. If you're the person that goes to work and performs well, and this other person's a lazy ass who sits on Facebook all day while at work, and then, but it shows and they get called out for it, instead of them trying to correct what they're doing, they make a point to try to undermine you. And because they think that you're the goody-goody, or you're the kiss ass, or brown noser and all that. And next thing you know, they're building up a team against you. So talk about that, man, how you help with that, with mobbing.
Oh, man. I mean, I guess you could say, my old company I used to work in, I guess I went through, I used to come in and, you come in a good mood and the manager's getting on you, or guys are getting on you because you're doing well and you're performing well. I don't know. I just kind of would just attack. Like when I was working, I would just try to fix it and remedy that. I was the guy who spoke up. So I got fired 3 times from that company, got rehired because I was so good at sales. But the thing was, I was having problems getting along with people. you could say I was the bipolar, but the thing is too, I was speaking up about what was going on in the workplace. You feel me? So, but
they don't like that at all. Any job, no job. A lot of jobs like to have the illusion that they encourage that. We want real, honest feedback, and then you provide it. All of a sudden, when it comes time to fire somebody, you're at the top of that list.
I mean, it got to the point where, I worked in sales, and let's be honest, it got to the point where certain guys, who kind of maybe still outwrote me a little bit, but some of these guys might outwrote me because they were, if I was off, and I hate to say this, but there were guys who would try to steal my sale, and I would have to let this guy take it because he was tighter with certain people, right. And I lost, $1,000 commission, and I had to bite my lip, and I wanted to fight him and choke him out, but I'm just funny. But I would speak up, and I'm like, it's not his cousin. I helped him. I did this, yada. So I just felt like sometimes my work was taking away from me and all my productivity. I could have even been a better salesman, but dealing with the workplace is tough. I'm not going to bring up this person's name, but I have a friend of mine who works for a major corporation that even deals with sexual harassment on a daily basis and won't say nothing. She said, it's common. I'm like, it's common. I'm sorry. If I'm your husband, I'm speaking up, man. What? Who? Right, what? Right. Did what? Shit. Nah. But she won't do it.
Well, the problem there is that so many women deal with it so often that maybe the first couple times they get really angry, and then all of a sudden it happens so often they just start becoming immune to it in terms of having a sensitive reaction or an authentic reaction. It reminds me of what my dad said about this young lady he met in Rwanda or Uganda, where she was going to college in America, and every time she went back home to visit her parents in this remote part of the country, there was a strong possibility she was going to get raped by some type of warlord gang or something along those lines. And it happened so often that she spoke about it the way we would think about getting a flat tire, just an inconvenience.
Right. And then on the flip side of that, what Cozmo was talking about, you might have these women who are, in today's society now, a lot of the women are the breadwinners now. The dads are at home or the dads are not there at all. So they feel like they're in a situation they got to do what they have to do. They just suck it up and swallow it down and just won't even talk about it and hold their pride down and, or just won't come forward because they don't want to lose that job because, there's this image that the message out there that there are not any jobs out there. So you have people like, well, at least I have a job. And so they'll sit there and just tolerate that stuff because they have to do what they have to do for, for their family and help them survive on the same, in the same note right there.
Well, at the same time, if you're really good at sales and you work for someone else, you're doing yourself a real disservice because that's a skill set that every entrepreneur needs. A lot of entrepreneurs I know suck at sales and they still manage to have an okay business. Right. So if you're really good at sales and promoting yourself, you should put that energy into your own entity, not waste it on someone else's vision.
Yeah, but so many people need, it's, I always see that, people always have that thing about what's going on, like just say in underprivileged neighborhoods, like, drugs and everything else is not, you've got a way out. But the thing is, a lot of times people don't have that example of someone who did that or show someone or gave them that belief that they can get out. They just, when you say that to them and you're sitting there with your 3-piece suit on and you're just, go to the boys club because that's just something you have to do as part of your community service and you never see these kids again, they're not listening to you, man.
Right.
They're not believing you. And a lot of times these women may have been around, grew up in a household where women were made to feel like, you just take care of me. You're never going to be worthy of anything. You can never be a leader. I'm the man of the house, or you'll never be worthy, blah, blah, blah. So that's been ingrained in you mentally for most of your life. It's hard. You may be good at sales because, you're constantly trying to prove yourself that you deserve the job, not necessarily that you're equal to the other guys, but that you actually deserve to have that job and not to get fired. And don't even realize that you can also say, screw these guys and go start your own company. But you're so focused on not losing your job and proving that you deserve the job. And that's what ends up happening a lot of times.
Well, those are quickly becoming antiquated because a lot more women nowadays don't care about getting married as a way of being provided for. They make their own money. They don't care about having kids as a way of feeling relevant and important. So there's a big shift happening now where more and more women are becoming really entrepreneurial. Even in the fitness business, I can think of a lot more female examples of high success than I can male examples.
Wow. Crazy. Yeah, I agree.
So it's one of those things that so many different things, but when it comes down to it, a lot of times what we probably all agree with here's the thing. Yeah, having a job is one thing, but you can always remember that your level of success will only be so high when you're working for someone else, when it's someone else's company. And even for those of us who own our own companies, like you always have to realize on the flip side of that, no one's going to give a damn about your company as much as you do, right. But at the same time, there's when you work for someone else, they care about their whatever they have so much that they'll make sure that they start getting a little paranoid sometimes, that they don't want you outshining and feel like, you could take over or do better or break off and do your own thing and then outdo their company. So they'll make it to where you'll never feel like you could ever be so good that you can move on and do your own thing. Yeah. Which I think if you're a mentor, that's if you're actually like trying to mentor someone, that's the worst thing you could ever do. You always want whoever it is that you're bringing up to be better than you. That is your goal. And if they don't get better than you, you suck. You're not a mentor. You need to just. Well,
let's be honest. You're not going to reach your full potential working for someone else. Just like you're not going to reach your full potential living in your parents' house for the rest of your life. At some point, you have to grow up and move out. So working for someone else is very parallel to living at home with your parents. You're relying on someone else for a paycheck. They decide what you get paid. They decide when you get paid. If you want to take vacation, you have to ask for permission. Come on. These are not emancipation activities.
Right. Unless you come back home to take care of your parents. Now, that's a different story.
Yeah,
but if you're 38 and you're living in your parents' basement because you're still, you're still trying to come up with that great internet, website that's going to make you millions. You're about 15 years too late.
You've got your webcam company in your parents' basement. No, but I mean, some people are living at home with their parents so long that when they're finally ready to move out, they have to stay because now they have to take care of their parents. Wow. Like, I'm ready to move out. It's like, well, I need you to stay now, son.
I don't want to live in a home.
And to reiterate what you guys talking about, I'm going to be doing public speaking on a daily basis now, and that's always been a dream of mine. And
well, let's get into that. How did you start getting all of this media exposure? Because as you were saying before we started recording, you've been trying to get this message out there for a while, and it's falling on deaf ears. And then all of a sudden, one media entity comes in, and then another comes in, and then the whole thing snowballs, and now you have all these opportunities.
I'll be honest with you, man. I'm going to tell you, it's a lot of work. It took a lot of no's, and I take no for an answer. And I don't know if you were recording at the time, but we talked about my first one. I'm not going to mention the station or whatever, but I basically was like, I kind of went off.
That's the station where you had to sleep with the station owner to get on?
That's good. But I just was in one of those moods, and I had the reporter on the phone, and I said, man, if I see another twerking video, I'm going to go crazy. I said, I want to be the face of bipolar PTSD. I'm a 100% disabled vet. I'm like, and I told my story. He goes, oh, well, we got to talk to, whatever. I'm like, all right, dude. Called him again, and he's like, we're going to do it. And then everything just snowballed from there. But I literally had to lay in. I felt like I said, listen, man, you're going to hear from me again on another station, whatever. I'm not stopping. I'm like, I basically told him, you need to do my story because I'm tired of this. I want to be like the policeman of fix all the garbage that's going on because, I try not to watch the news because I get triggered here and there. I stay away from politics, all the violence that's going on. At one point, I just feel like I'm like, why can't the world be a better place? Can I at least try to help make it a better place? And then people tell me, you always want to change the world. And I said, listen, if an X amount of percentage thought the way it did, I think the world would be a lot better place. I'm not going to be that guy who's just going to be whining and complaining and falling in with the masses.
Right.
I'm not going to do that.
Right.
It's not me. So now I'll be speaking. I got a message. It was awesome. This is how busy I am. And, I'm just focused on my fighting and trying to stay alive. My buddy, who's my co-partner, he's in Texas. He's a former sniper. And he has PTSD and stuff. So we became friends. And he goes, bro, you checking the emails? I'm like, what emails? He's like, on your site. I'm like, I'm too busy. I thought you would check it. He goes, dude, Frank Shamrock emailed you, and then San Diego State University wants you to keynote speak. Bro, you got to get on. I'm like, I thought you were handling that. Make a long story. I mean, I'm so busy that, the last thing I thought it was like I'm going to get to this point. So now it's snowballed to the point where, like, oh, my God, I'm going to write my book. I'm going to, like my ultimate dream, I'm going to be honest with you, I want to get into movies. But I want to be that guy. Like a hero. I want to be a hero. If somebody said, hey, man, you're going to be in Avengers 3 or whatever it is, make me some character that coincides with my demeanor. because I would be good at it. Right. Not that I want to be a Hollywood movie star, but it's about me passing on my message through that, because you can hit the whole world on that level. Like my favorite guys is The Rock. I don't think I've seen one derogatory article on that man. He's just a great person. I said one day I'm going to be in the gym working out with that dude. Him and Brandon Marshall from the Jets, because I'm a diehard Jet fan. Brandon Marshall represents mental health, 375.org, and I'm like, I don't even have to talk. I said, I just want to work out and be around him and go beast mode in the gym. That's it. That's all I care about. Yeah. My mission. I want to be heard. Whatever it takes.
Rock gets respect, man. He's just because he grinds so much. Even at the point now that he's one of the top paid actors in Hollywood, he still grinds. And the thing is, he's still out there. He's just not so self-absorbed, like, hey, selfish. It's just like he's steadily putting out messages every day. Get up, grind, go, take care of your body, take care of your mind. Don't use any excuses. Like, look, man, I came out here with $7, and he didn't have to. He's a guy that didn't really have to grind because, here's a second generation wrestler. He could have easily used both sides of his family to get in the business and make it, but he didn't choose that route. And I think his dad played a big part in it. It's like, no, I'm not going to give you the easy way out. You're going to start from the bottom and work your way up. And you're not going to just get in because I'm working for WWE or your family's these famous Samoans who have had like 3 generations of legacy, in this company or whatever. But at the same time, you're not going to be able to wrestle forever. So you also need to take your butt to school. You need to do this, and you need to prepare yourself what happens after you leave the ring. And I think that was a good start for him, and he never left those values or whatever. And he still throws it out there to everybody. Yeah, he's a relatable guy also. He's not super duper Hollywood. He's a guy like guys like us can relate to, whereas half the people in Hollywood are like, God, what a douche. Come on, man.
Now, he was on the most recent UFC podcast with Matt Serra. Really cool guy. And he talks about how he still wakes up at 4 a.m. to get his workouts in. Yeah. But he's on a movie set. He has to be there at 7. So he wakes up at 4, checks his email, gets his workout in before he goes to the set.
Yeah, he'll film it. He puts it on Instagram every morning. There he is doing his workout. And he has an app that, has other people waking up with him, and getting up there and grinding.
Well, I can say one thing. For that Fast and the Furious movie, he should have slept in a couple hours because he was so big in that movie. I know. His arms looked like it's like, do you really have to be that big? You got veins that go from your bicep to your head.
I'm like, you're not a regular cop, dude, okay? So I'm like, you're in the wrong movie. You should be in the next Avengers movie, okay? You're
missing
like
your calling. 3 FBI agents in one person, right? You don't have to be that big.
I've seen FBI agents. They don't look like that.
Yeah. You mentioned Matt Serra doing a podcast. What's funny is when I won Pan Am's, which is a real big one of the biggest major tournament. It's no-gi. Yeah. And he walks by me because, you got legends walking around at these high-level IBJF tournaments. Right. And he sees me in my medal and go, "What's up, man?" And you don't know me, but I just go up to him and go, "Dude," I'm like, "you look so much bigger on TV." And he goes, "Get over it." He goes, he's like stout. He's like a pit bull. He's just like, I'm tall than him. So I go, "Can we take a picture? Come on, man, let's take a picture." So he holds the medal and he goes, "Wait a minute." He goes, "We got a pummel for this." Pummeling is where it's like a wrestling thing where you go for the underhooks. And we pummeled for like 30 seconds, and then we took the video. It was just great, man. Like I just went to him. He looked at me like, "This guy." I'm like, "You look bigger on TV." Like I just, because my endorphins are going. I just won. You're on top of the world. I'm like, "Bro, what's up, man?" I'm like, "Man, what's up?" And he just gave me this look like, "Man, this guy."
You're excited when your voice goes that high.
Yeah. I do. You change your voice, you get all like I do that a lot. And I think that's how I sold a lot because like when you're dealing with, I'll give you an example. When I used to sell and the family comes in, you're dealing with an affluent family. Right. And I never forget the husband goes exactly like this verbatim. He gets behind his wife and he's looking at me and he goes, "Cozmo, tell my wife why we need those huge speakers." And I put on my Mickey Mouse voice, and I'm like, "Well, when you're listening to sound, and I basically what I did is I explained it to her. She went, "Oh, I get it. Okay, we'll take them." It was just funny, but I just turned my inflection. It was an inflection in my voice. I'm like, "Hey, I'm Mr. Speaker," and she just started laughing. But that's how you sell. I conformed to what. Because, it was trying to keep it in layman's terms and all that technical jargon. And that's how I did it because I had an emotion.
Oh, it's better than going into a creepy voice. Like, let me tell you something about the speakers.
And plus, I guess that voice you were using is more like, okay, it would be if she came home and the kids just came home from school. Well, what did you do today at school? and so the kids are just explaining, they're excited, but, they have that voice inflection about the same tone that you were using. But the way they're explaining it just shows like, oh my God, they're so interested in, it makes the parents interested in whatever, the mother's interested in what they're doing. So you kind of get down to that child level for her, so if she kind of pulls out the nurturing part of her. And so trust me, that dude knew what he was doing. That's why he got behind her. He's like, yeah. He's like, Cozmo, do that thing you do.
It was great. And you know what? You're not really pushing. You're being real. I'm like, and she's giving you this look like, I know I'm not going to get this jargon, what it's made out of, it's this and that, because that's all, she's a mom. And I kept it simple, stupid, and I just put it on a very funny scale and changed my voice. It's not obvious.
Sense of humor does work.
Yeah, it works, man. And you know what? To me, it wasn't selling because I was giving stuff or helping them attain what I would want in my own home. And I had different methods to help them get there, to understand that. Because you are taking their money, and everything is predicated on money because you have to buy. It's deep. Sales training is very deep. You never want to use the term buy or contract because that signifies, oh my God, I'm signing a contract. I would just use different methods.
Well, I think the good rule of thumb is you don't want to try to sell something that you don't use personally and enjoy.
Right.
And you sound excited, that's going to get them excited as well. It's like, wow. And they can tell when something you're organically excited about something compared to being a fake salesman who's just trying to sell something. It's like,
even my jiu-jitsu instructor, like, it parlays into everything. When I come here, the VA interviewed him, and they said, well, what's it like? He goes, whew, Cozmo is, he goes, whew, Cozmo is a cappuccino and a cup of coffee. He is. When he comes in, it's like, okay, Cozmo's here. But he says it's a good thing because some days he's saying, because he trains 6 days a week and doubles and, he's younger, but, it's a very taxing sport. And when you have a business and you got to be on point, you're training with these up and coming champions and stuff. And you're a black belt, you got to represent. And sometimes you're fatigued and you're sore. And when I come in, he's just like, I give him that extra little, I wouldn't necessarily boost, but it's kind of like, wow, I feel good, and that's great. And he's like, and the thing is, I think one reason why I'm like that is because you've seen so much and you've been through so much and you just want to make people laugh. And getting back to the comedians, your Robin Williams of the world and stuff like that, you look back and you go, I can't believe this person, took his own life. He had everything, but it's not about everything. I mean, he was fighting his demons, but he was really good at making people laugh, and he's gone.
Right.
And I don't want to be that. Because I have those moments. I'm not going to lie. And if I don't stay busy and feel like and I hate to say I want to be somebody, but if I'm not accomplishing feats, then I have that time where I can fall into a rut, and I just don't want to do that. I got to keep busy. I have to.
Right.
Yeah. And it's just that's what I got to do.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. Well, I always say maintenance is an illusion. You're either progressing or you're regressing. And if you're regressing, that's depressing. No one's excited about regressing, but you get excited about progressing.
Right. And, you get a little bit older, and like when I found your products, I'm like, I'm 43 years old. Holy crap. I'm like, well, eventually my test levels are going to drop. And I'm like, I don't do steroids. I would never. I'm like, I want to live a long, vibrant life, good, healthy exercise. And if there's other natural means to sustain or maybe even slightly increase, and, then I'm all about that. And, I don't take medication for the bipolar because it made me a zombie. And there's the bottle. I never forget. I'm looking at the bottle, and I'm like, oh, my God. The whole objective is for me to stay alive, but the bottle says if I can have suicidal ideation. I'm like,
I see those commercials. I'm like, what? Yeah. It's like, might call suicidal thoughts. I'm like, okay, this is the last person you want to have suicidal thoughts. This is stupid. What are you talking about? And I can understand why so many don't want to be on medication, man. When you say things like that, when you see this list of side effects, I'm like, wait a minute, the first thing out of your mouth is suicidal thoughts? I thought that was the whole point of taking this medication, so I don't have suicidal thoughts.
Yeah, right.
And what's great, man, too, I'm going to kind of change a little direction. The VA, what I love about the VA now is they're trying to focus on finding alternative means, I guess you can say, with rehabilitation. So they took my story because they see me. They're like, well, they know me. They know I was hospitalized. They know me and they go, wow, he's doing it. It's tough. But the counseling is helping. Maybe there'll be a couple of, some other vets out there who can maybe follow his lead. Because I'll be honest, I don't know if a lot of people can do it because jiu-jitsu has such a high attrition rate. If I told somebody who's going to train with me because I'm close to my brown belt when I earn my black, I'd say, listen, it could take 8 to 10 years to get your black belt. And if you're not competing, that's as long as it takes to be a doctor. But what they're really trying to focus on is not just PTSD and mental health that has to do with combat. They're actually bringing up the hush-hush stuff, which is great. Because my story is different. I was in trouble a lot. I mean, I got an honorable discharge. I got a Navy Achievement Medal, Meritorious Mass, letters of commendation towards the end, because I was trying my hardest, and they saw that. But they did an article. I'm not going to mention the person's name. I mean, it did go viral. It's on their site. But a man who was raped by another man, and he's disabled because his life is completely changed. He has PTSD because of that. What went on, and I'm seeing the VA actually get better and starting to focus on other things. Because PTSD comes in many forms. And what's good is I guess you could say I'm almost kind of like the first person within the confines of the VA that has bipolar and doing this stuff. I don't know how many vets statistically have bipolar, but a lot of them are housebound that I've seen, which means they actually have to have a nurse with them and stuff. And I haven't reached that point. I'm one threshold under that, according to the VA. So, like I said, I will do everything in my power, to try to eliminate that. But like I said, when you have something that you can't control, who knows, it could escalate later on. But according to the doctors, because I'm in my 40s, I should be fine. Because they always ask me if I'm hearing voices because my father was schizophrenic and I don't hear voices. And I'm grateful and thankful for that because, my father hung himself. And, I think about it and go, wow, I've reached low, but I haven't actually attempted. I mean, I just had the serious thoughts and the crying and the feeling low. But to do that, he was really, really sick, and I'm happy that I haven't gotten to that, which I should be fine. I don't think I'll get to that point. I just got to take one day at a time.
Yeah. When you get to that point, it's because you feel there aren't any other options at all. So
right.
The key is make sure that you feel there are other options. And if you even feel yourself steering a little bit in that direction, you have to wheel it in and figure out why.
Right.
And I think it really helps to have some type of support system, man.
No doubt.
With that instead. No one should have to deal with any of that stuff alone, so.
What's your take? Do you guys, do you feel that, because I tell you, I really feel that the stigma with mental health.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
it's huge. It's huge.
I mean, dude, coming from, I've had on both sides, whereas, like I said earlier in the show, I've seen it in my family. My wife, she dealt with it. Her brother committed suicide as well, and so these stories are very familiar to me. And a lot of times the stigma comes from people who don't understand and never really had to deal with the situation, not just personally, not just with themselves, but with someone close to them. And really understand. A lot of people love to speak about what they have no effing idea what they're talking about. And they like to assume or go by what they see on the on the news or something like that. I'm like, look, man, the news is looking for a new story, and they'll make anything look dramatic so it can keep you interested in watching the story. But most of the time, it's not based on facts. That's why they can talk about one subject and each month find a new study that goes one way or the other on that same subject. Nothing's ever this absolute thing. Because they just look for news and something sensational to keep your attention. My thing is, have you ever sat down and talked to someone who's had to deal with these issues and just like really heard their story? Like Mike and I always talk about people when they talk about homeless people and like, oh man, why don't he just get a job, or why didn't he get help from his family? Well, do you even know if he has family? Did you talk to him? Did you ask him any questions? Or you just made an assumption? So, a lot of times, man, people really want to understand it. Like I said, talk to someone who's dealing with it, man. Go to the VA. Come on, go to the VA, talk to some vets there, man. Drop off some DVDs or something like that. These guys are who's stuck in there. They need stuff to do. So it's a good time to talk. If you ever feel like your life is crap, like Mike and I always say, go to the children's hospital, hang out with those kids, man. And then realize your life is not as bad as you think it is. These people going through some real stuff over there. But guess what? By you taking the time and showing them some attention and just showing interest in what's going on with them, not only are you helping yourself, you're helping them as well. So it's a win-win situation for everybody. That's how I feel about it. So I don't make any judgments, man, because like I said, I see it too much. And like I said, I know I got my sleeping giant that could be awakened. Anything could trigger that, but my thing is to, like you said, I like to keep myself busy and doing things, man, and having goals and having stuff going on to where I don't give that beast, I don't give it the fuel to wake up. It needs to stay in hibernation. It needs to never know that it's not winter. Okay. It needs to always be in that cave because who knows? And I think, and people don't want to admit it, but everybody's got that switch. Everyone has it. Everybody has that potential to hit that switch and then boom. And next thing you know, like, I don't even know where that came from.
So I had that switch about maybe, that's about 13 years ago now. Mm-hmm. Well, I had an issue with he probably won't listen to the podcast. I don't really talk to him too much anyway, but I served with a prior Marine friend of mine, and we lived together for a little bit. And one day, I don't know what happened. He said something, I got triggered, and next thing you know, all you hear is meat packing sounds. I laid him out in the living room. I went back and ate my food. I'm looking at my shirt. I had my shirt ripped off, scratches and blood on my body. His family kicked me out of the house. That's when, that was before I actually became fully disabled. So, and then I got my own apartment. But that one incident, I look back, I go, that's when that beast came out. And I don't want that to come out, man. That's horrible. What I did was horrible. But, I just don't know. I don't remember all I remember is I just ran in the living room and then, he's out and he was out in the living room. And I went back and sat down and ate. Like, I was like, was that a psychotic moment? Like, how can you sit down and finish eating your meal? I just went back to eat my meal and I got up and look. And then next thing you know, my phone's blowing up. His parents are going to call the police and this and that. And I'm like, I will never do that again. We have a good relationship now, but I could never get that back because of what I did. Right. And now that I'm public with my stuff, they have to understand that I don't want to use the term it's debilitating, but it's technically a disability and I'm disabled from it. But it's like something wrong with your extremity, your arm, or your leg. It's the brain. The brain is responsible for running your whole body.
Right.
I mean, we don't know much about it, but if we don't have a brain, you can't speak, you can't walk, you can't do anything. So my mission is just to hopefully have everybody go, mental health is serious. It's not a joke. And it's got to be taken seriously because it is.
Yeah. Like you said, earlier, deep down inside, all of us we forget that we're animals, we're just a more evolved animals, at least on paper, a lot of stuff that we do these days and what we're doing to the environment, whatever, you makes that questionable. But on paper, we're the most evolved animals. But at the end of the day, that is at the core of who we are. So a lot of times, you still have those animal instincts. Animals sometimes go into that defensive mode and they attack, they defend, and then they go back to their day. They don't sit there and harp on it. You don't see a lion just sitting there, just harping, looking at an antelope like, yeah, got you. Now what? It's just like, okay, I had to eat, or, some hyenas were trying to attack him and he realized like, oh, I can actually take out two of them. He takes out two. He's not sitting there trying to hang around and wait for the rest of them. He's kind of like, all right, let me just get on back to my pride now before these other hyenas show up. And they go back to their way. And a lot of times we have that. People just don't want to admit it because we like to think that we're so evolved that, no, we'd never do that. We don't know what we do because, like you said, man, there's a lot about the brain we don't understand. We think we do, but there's just so many things going on with the brain, man. And it's this complex thing going on in our head. And it's just like a computer, man. It's this CPU that, just like with our computers, we can sit there and think about all this other stuff, but every now and then the best we can do is just defrag, and try to keep it as clear of all type of viruses or whatever else and, not put too much on it or whatever, man. Best possible.
Just to reiterate, there's a friend of mine, his name's Chad Robichaux. He's a former Bellator world champion, and he's a second-degree black belt. And when he was teaching us, we did a class. I went out to this place called the Mighty Oaks. It's mostly Marines, but it's for veterans with PTSD and stuff. And what's beautiful is they took me in because my PTSD is non-combat related, and I still love my story. PTSD is PTSD. Right. But he explained it. He's like, he used the arm bar. And I'm sure you know what an arm bar is. It's like, you hyperextend the arm. You can break the arm if you don't tap, blah, blah, blah. Right. He's like, well, when you get caught in that and you don't tap quick and you get hurt, he goes, because that one incident happened, he goes, your defense would be exponentially better than somebody training the armbar without the full submission because you got hurt and your body knows don't go there again. Right. So when you talk about the defense mechanism, you're saying like, you react because you don't want to get hurt. Then you can go back to your normal activity. That's what, with PTSD, when he said that, I said, wow, I'm like, that makes sense, because I don't get armbarred as much anymore, because when he armbarred me, it hurt. And I thought he hyperextended my arm. And that ain't happening again. So
trust me, I feel you. We were just talking about that a couple of episodes ago, with a fight hypnotist, and, I had an issue with someone armbar. I mean, it's just funny. It's like, that's one of those things, even just getting into the shooting sports. I make a habit. I'm not the person that extends my arm all the way out when I'm holding my pistol, because I think about that, especially if you're in close quarter combat situations. I don't want my arm all the way out there where I'm at a disadvantage at that point, so I kind of keep it a little close to my body. So therefore I can have a little bit more options to protect myself, and it's funny. And I was thinking about that a couple of weeks ago, even when I went to the range, that, I still feel like a lot of that has to do with that day, in that dojo. In that situation, I had to deal with this guy, with an armbar, and I tapped, and he kept on applying the hold, to the point where I was like, it took everything in my power not to kick this dude in the freaking face, from where from that vantage point. But again, it's just like, okay, nah, never again. I'll probably do everything in my power. If anybody grabs my arm, I don't know, man. Again, talking about that switch, I don't know what'll come out of me if someone were to try that. So just because, again, got a little PTSD from that situation. Because I remember that my elbow was jacked up for almost a year after that happened. And I was competing in kettlebell sport, and that messed with a lot of my competitions after that. It took a while for my elbow to heal. I'm trying to lock out a kettlebell above head, and you really can't lock out because your elbow's jacked up, Well,
I'm at that point right now, brother. I'm saying, my right arm, from doing muscle ups and putting too much time, I think I developed tendonitis, and I can't bend my right arm fully. And some days when I go to Jiu Jitsu and guys arm drag me or do whatever, I have to tell them and say, look, man, I'm tapping. They're like, you tapped? I'm like, my arm is killing me. It's rocked. It's getting better. But I think
that could be a couple of things. One, you might need a scope where they just go in there and get rid of debris and all that are inhibiting that motion. Or you may have what I have. I have severe arthritis in my left elbow from some kind of injury. I don't know exactly, or maybe a combination of many injuries. So basically at that point, you just have to deal with it as much as possible. You can take certain supplements. There's one called Cartilast, which helps get more space between the bones in there, because mine's basically bone on bone, so that the cartilage is basically gone. So it's just bone on bone rubbing against each other. So I'm trying to get more space in there. It's a product called Cartilast that's really good. And then there's Cetyl Myristomate. My product, Restorazyme, is really good at mitigating inflammation. It's more managing the pain rather than trying to get that full range of motion back, because that's going to be highly unlikely. But if I can manage the pain, then it doesn't inhibit anything I like to do.
Wow. Okay. I got you. I appreciate it. Like I said, your products are great, man. So I'm done with I only did like a month. I did a month of the testosterone boost or whatever. So I'm probably going to get another one again soon,
Yeah, your balls got so big you had to switch to MeUndies.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's funny. My first training stuff about a year ago, and I did I followed the protocol. I'm 165 pounds. I did 2. And when you say I was like, holy shit. I'm like, they're fucking huge, man.
Yeah, I'm not joking around when I say your balls get bigger.
Oh no, I remember I remember telling myself, hey man, are your balls supposed to get bigger from taking this, man? Because I'm just making sure nothing's wrong with me. And let me see if it's the T booster first before I start calling my doctor. Like, hey man, all right, check it out. My testicles they're growing. I don't know. And he's like, that's a problem?
I can't tell you how many emails I've gotten from people talking about their balls getting bigger. I was like, that's great, buddy. I'm glad your balls feel better.
But you know what? It's loud because,
as long as they don't send you photos, Mike. That's all.
Yeah, exactly. That's a sign that it's an effective natural testosterone booster, because your balls signal your brain to make – your brain rather signals your balls to make more testosterone. Right. So, in essence, you should have bigger balls if you're making more testosterone.
Oh, my God.
The concentration of cholesterol in the balls and converts it into testosterone. There you go.
Wow. Nuts. Crazy. Well, I'm probably going
to... Yeah, nuts. Be the operative word.
No pun intended. So...
well, great, man. It's been awesome having you on. Where can people find out more about everything you're doing?
I guess you could say, I'm a big Twitter and social Facebook guy. My site, we update periodically, but, the site's kind of just let people know that, I hate to say I'm the real deal, but like I'm legit. Like, you know, if they want my contact. Now I'm monitoring the email a lot more, you know, it's because, you know, when you're fighting every day and training, some days I come home, I got my dog. I can't even move. I'm like Rocky. He goes, can you just leave me alone? That's how I get. Like, I'm like, I got ice on my arm. But now the sleeping giant is awoken in a good way, because now I have an opportunity to really, I use the term infect. I know it's a negative term, but infect because it's hard to get away, to get rid of it. The public speaking is going to be my major thing now, because, you know, I want to just do jiu-jitsu and earn my black belt. But I want to kind of slowly compete a little bit less because, you know, it's time consuming, costs money. I don't get paid for them. I have to pay for all those trips. And also, you know, I'm getting to the age where I want to enjoy some of that free time, you know, because I cross train and I'm traveling more. So this is an opportunity. I'm slowly changing lanes to the public speaking realm. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. To me, those are the three major tools that I love to use. The site will be updated here and there. And that's pretty much it, you know. People are finding me relatively easy. San Diego State had to send me a message on Instagram because I didn't respond. They're like, we had to Google you. We saw your stuff. And they sent me a personal mention on Instagram. I'm like, holy crap, this is great, man. I'm like, I'm going to get to speak. And they're actually open. I want to be different. I'm actually going to do a demo and interact with people in the mental health, I guess you could say, that have mental health issues at the university, and actually get them involved in jiu-jitsu and be a hands-on kind of guy.
That's great, man.
Appreciate it.
Well, we keep up all the great work, and we'll let you know when this episode is out. But great talking to you, man. It was awesome.
All right, brother. Enjoy your day.
All right, you have a great one. You take care, Robert.
Bye. Peace out.
Take care, man. All right, folks, you know the deal. At this point, you can use that coupon code LLA. Go get 10% off everything you see at MikeMahler.com. Join Robert in getting the testosterone booster. Some of you guys probably need to increase the size of your balls, so you can start. you can start off. Some of you are like, "Well, I already bought the tiger nuts."
But you're no tiger, man.
That's probably not enough. All right, go and get aggressive strength for the ultimate in nuts. Be all you can be with aggressive strength. There you go. Use that coupon code LLA, get 10% off. And how about with you, man?
Yeah, same thing, man. So head over to newwarriortraining.com. Use that same coupon code, 10% off everything you see over there. And like I said, that's all you need to do, man. And otherwise, go to patreon.com/LLA podcast. And you can become a monthly supporter of the show, really a supporter of the show, by going to that. And we appreciate that, especially all our Patreon supporters out there. And, you know, guys like Kev over in the UK who gave us that Patreon bump. You know, the Patreon bump is when someone's been supporting us through Patreon and they decide, you know what, I can give a little more. I really enjoy this content. Why not bump it up a little bit more and make my monthly donation a little bit more? So, hey, man, join Kev and use that Patreon bump, man. And, yeah, as we get ready to head into the subscription side of things coming up in a couple of months. So it'll just kind of make things a lot better. So, yeah, there you go.
All right. Sounds good, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Catch you next time, folks.